and welcome to Thursday's episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and I am joined in person in my flat in sunny Gorbals by Craig G Telfer. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Craig. It's wonderful to be here. I think this is the first time I've done a live podcast. First time I've done a live podcast with you in a while. First time I've done a podcast that's been recorded, certainly in person. A lot of times it's been online. So, I'm interested. I ironed a t-shirt. So, really, it's like in The Simpsons, you know, when Homer wears a tie to try and impress Laddie. That's the same vibe that I'm going for with this.
I was actually thinking that because, as you say quite a lot of the time, I am dressed as if I'm here to tarmac somebody's driveway.
You look like the sort of a tarmacker's granddad who sort of project manages it without actually doing all that much.
The granddads wear Adidas. I suppose some do.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's about the brand, it's just generally what you're wearing.
I wear my
anything that's elasticated.
Yes. See, but it's both. We're both dressed appropriately. You've dressed appropriately to come to somebody else's house.
Yes.
And I am dressed appropriately for being in my own house.
Yes, if it was the other way round, then we'd be like, what's
that would be quite
yeah.
That would be quite funny. I've just ironed the shirt and you just come up
in my pyjamas. Yeah. No, that's not the case. I can assure you. I've had this ironed and ready to go. So no, I want to make that clear.
No, I'm very much a man who's just like, fuck it, I don't care. Comfort, unless I'm going on a night out all the time. I just wear joggies all the time now, unless I'm literally going to a pub.
See, the thing that's about that though, Fowler, wearing joggies, it allows you to fall into, or you don't watch yourself. You know what I mean? This is the first podcast I think I've done in 2024. I think that, I really enjoyed myself over the Christmas period. I was eating like a pig, like a disgusting pig, like the pig from that episode of Black Mirror. That's the state that I got into over Christmas. So I'm just at this.
You got pumped by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, it was grotesque. But we're at the stage now where, see, when you start wearing when you're going out more often, or like you're not in the house, when you actually start putting your old clothes on, you put your jeans on, you think, oh geez, these were a lot tighter. And I remember them to be. That's where I feel just now. So I've made a bet with myself that I can lose a stone by the end of February.
Yeah, I'm aiming for similar. I was telling you off air, the heaviest I've been since I was 21 years old.
I didn't bring that up to shame you. I just bring it up as a conversation point.
It's the Christmas period. I done my back, and my back went out again kind of early December, late November maybe. And typically before, when it's happened, it's kind of fixed itself a bit more earlier. I was just expecting, and it wasn't the worst twinge I've ever had, so I was like, a couple of weeks I'll be back at the gym, no bother. I basically couldn't go to the gym for like 6 weeks. So then that was the lead up to Christmas. And then the Christmas period.
Of course. Like the way you're doing that, it's like that's like the sequel to Oh What a Night. I hurt my back late November back in 23. What a very sorry time for me.
That's quite impressive.
That is. I was in my head, I wasn't listening to what you were saying. I was like, I hope he stops finished speaking so then I can drop that zinger because I didn't have it written down.
It's funny doing these podcasts now when I'm listening to them back so intently. I not only listen to them back to edit them, but also then watching them to edit the videos. It's often when I'm doing a podcast with Tony in person at his, and I'm looking at the time, thinking, right, let's keep this to about under an hour. And I'm looking at my notes thinking, right, where are we going next? And there's been so many times he's made like a great point at the end of what he's saying. It was like, I could have really said something good there and continued the conversation, but I'm just not listening to it at all.
I think the thing is, though, fella, this is a lower league podcast. You should probably clarify it's lower league podcast. So time's not a factor when it comes to the lower leagues. More about vibes than it is about getting things down to a nice succinct hour.
Believe me, I know that. Right, let's get to the patented.
Yes.
3-game roundup, and we shall begin last Friday night at Hampden Park with a long awaited victory. That's going to be a theme of this podcast, actually. Long awaited victory for Queen's Park, beating Dunfermline by 2-1. Now, I didn't see the game, I watched the highlights. You watched the game. What's your general thoughts before we get to the kind of themes of the match?
Right, to sum up this match, there was, on the electronic advertising boards around the ground, there was an advertisement for person-centred palliative care, and I thought I really could be doing with some of that rather than watching this game of football. I thought it was a miserable game of football. I thought it was a really poor advert for the division, given the fact that I watched another game on Tuesday night in League One. That was a really good game of football. It was really exciting. That was played at a good tempo. I thought this was a Queen's Park side who had almost forgotten how to win games. I mean, it was since middle of August that they had last won a match. I think it was, what did they say? It was something like the first win in 16 games. And it just looked like a side who were quite nervous, that looked inhibited. And I think they came up against the Dunfermline Athletic side who really short in numbers. I think they two players that went off injured, Jakubiak and Aaron Comrie went off injured, and I think that Dunfermline could actually put out a pretty reasonable looking group of players from the squad that they don't have available.
Yeah, somebody actually did that in Pine Bovril.
Yeah.
It was literally, I think it was only a goalie and another forward player short of a proper team.
Aye, exactly. But I didn't think this was a good game of football. I think that on top of that, I don't want to sound like SPFL Media Watch. Believe me, I do not want to sound like SPFL Media Watch. But I think when you look at Hampden on the television like that, it just didn't look like a lot of fun. And that was reflected on the calibre of the match. However, I think the most important thing is a huge result for Queen's Park because, as we say, first win in 16, first win in 5 months. And crucially,
already off the bottom.
It takes them off the bottom of the table. Yeah, they've been replaced by Arbroath there. So, yeah, they're probably the only positives you can say about this game.
And they have now got themselves a new manager as well.
I think I was actually really interested on your thoughts to this because as an outsider looking in, you think at one point back in the 2020-21 season, like you would have said that Callum Davidson would have been the most up-and-coming young manager in the UK, like a League Cup and a Scottish Cup double with St Johnstone. That's a phenomenal achievement. So you really have to ask yourself, where's it gone wrong that he's managing Queen's Park? And I know that Queen's Park will come with its advantages. I think that it's quite a reasonably well-paid job. I think that the club would have pushed the boat out, certainly perhaps dipping into Willie Hawley's slush fund to bring him in. But from going from winning that cup double to really doing quite a bad job at St Johnstone latterly, where the fans were just like, I think the impression was we just want him to go. So, I was going to come and talk about Callum Davidson later, but we might as well just touching him now since you brought him up.
So, you and Shaughan have talked on the previous shows quite a few times about Queen's Park's supposed 10-year plan. Like the 10-year plan they had with, it wasn't Veldman, it was...
Marion Bucher.
Yes, Marion Bucher. And I'd agreed with Shaughan, by the way. He was never going to... It just always happens in football. It's like a 10-year plan. It's the same with the performance director of the SFA. I think the recommendation for that was that person should always be in a job for 10 years because it's just such a big thing to oversee. And I don't think we've had a performance director that's lasted more than 2 years. But it's kind of... So they wanted that 10-year plan, and it was all about bringing through the young players and focusing really very intently on that. And it was a style, the Dutch style, bringing them through them, making them good footballers, making them play good football. Callum Davidson's teams don't play good football at all. So to me, it just feels already, I'm sure the club will deny it, but it feels already that 10-year plan is already changed.
They don't have a CEO. I mean, no one's coming to, sorry, I beg your pardon, they don't have a director of football. They don't have a CEO now anyway. Leanne Dempster's left, but they don't have a director of football. Marion Bucher's left, and surely if you were doing things the proper way, you'd have appointed a new director of football who would then in turn appoint a head coach, as it were, who fits into all these criteria. And it feels as though that with Callum Davidson, you're going back to, rather than a head coach, you're going back to more traditional, like manager.
Aye. It just seems like Bucher's away, so okay, that plan's at the window, what we're going to do now, okay, who's available? Callum Davidson, he'd probably do a good job. Well, us get him instead. Like that, it's just what football clubs do all the time when they unveil these plans. They never ever seem to ever see them through, and it just feels like another version of that. As for this season, you'll know a lot more about Queen's Park than me. Have they got the players to play in a 3-4-3? Because they're going to.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of who the fullbacks are. Tommy Robson on one fullback. I think who's it?
That's not too bad.
Lewis Reed and the other. No, is the answer. They're very much built up to play like 4-2-3-1. Very much built up to play the 4-2-3-1. I mean, they've only got one striker at the club in Peyton.
I mean, did he get me wrong? Davidson might. I mean, I think his last game he went with a back four, but it was very rare that he.
I was getting the impression really he was second guessing himself with by changing away from a 3 to a 4. You're like, let's just try this. This is just the end of days.
At that point, it was like, right, I need to try and save my job some way. The fans are constantly going on about this 3 at the back. All right, here's a 4. Okay, we've got beat again. Okay, that's me out of a job.
Aye, it feels as though that having read again on Pine Bovril, I don't like complaining about people, but I'm going to do it again. A St Johnstone fan goes under the username Random Guy, and he must have a notification that any time someone mentions St Johnstone, regardless of what thread it is, because he comes in and starts commenting.
It's like that meme with the bat signal.
Is it? Yeah. I'll need to post. But he was in, and it's very interesting reading his post, because I'm sure that I just remember like when Callum Davidson's departure was announced on, I think it was Sky Sports, it was live. Ailey Barber, it was middle of the game, can't remember the game, but Ailey Barber had announced that Callum Davidson was away, and James McFadden was like, "That's a crazy decision." And it's like you're not paying attention, because it felt as though that St Johnstone fans, who, to my mind, St Johnstone are like a Premiership, a small Premiership club, but a good Premiership club who can occasionally finish in the top six. If you've got the right players on the pitch and the right manager, they can achieve that. And it was almost like they were gaslit into believing that mediocrity was waiting. They were lucky to be there.
It was one of those things where, well, mainly I think McFadden said it because he's pals with Davidson. I think that was a suggestion. I think their careers might have even overlapped at St Johnstone.
Right.
Because Davidson went back and was a coach and then went away again and then came back as manager. Or was he even assistant to Wright? But regardless, he was there. He came back as a player and he was there as a coach as well. Went away, came back, whatever. McFadden also had a spell at St Johnstone. I think about the same time. So I think they're pals. So I think that was kind of it. I think that was basically what McFadden was doing there. But you do see it all the time, because, like you say, they're not paying attention. They're looking at St Johnstone winning 2 cups. And fans of other teams just always seem to think like, okay, job for life. Doesn't matter what's happening. You've done that, so regardless of what you do for this point forward, that's fine. That's used to it. You don't ever deserve to be sacked.
Yeah, it was almost like the years like 2031, St Johnstone are like in League 2, battling against dropping into the Highland League, and people say, Davidson's got to go. I remember that cup. No. So it'll be interesting to see what he does at Queen's Park. It'll be very, very interesting to see what he does at Queen's Park, because I think that they're a team. I went to see Queen's Park early in the season. That was a 0-0 draw at Hampden against Hamilton. It wasn't a particularly good game of football. And at that point, I think Shaughan and I had done a podcast where I commented on Queen's Park and said they just looked overcoached. And what I meant by that was that they just looked, I use the word inhibited, where they were just intent on keeping the ball rather than doing anything with it. It was like, if there was, you could perhaps play a riskier pass forward. Why do that when you can just like pass it sideways or pass it back? And so it was a pretty like low intensity, dull game of football. I think with this one, I don't know if they were the better side against Dunfermline. The scoreline reflects it, and they did have a particularly a good goal ruled out. It looked like a good goal ruled out in the first half. Peyton had a shot after and scored after play was brought back. Both goals, though.
The offside decision was absolutely ridiculous.
Horrendous. He must have been a good 3 yards off
And the thing is, as well, the covering defender that's playing him on, he makes a wee kind of movement, but it's not like he charges back. And also, it's on the linesman's side.
I know.
I actually looked at the linesman. I actually think he's like, I locked the back door. He seems to just stop.
He's forgotten something.
Yeah.
Like when's it my wife's birthday? Shit.
That's it. Flag up.
But I mean, both Queen's Park goals, there was an element of fortune with them. You know, the first goal, there's like Ben Summers loses possession like in the middle of the park,
and then the defence just lets Peyton get a shot off as well.
Yeah, I thought that was really poor. So I mean, you can blame. I think that you can blame Summers, but there's a good few seconds, and Peyton's got a lot of time on the ball before he gets his shot away. So there's both points of failure there. And Dom Thomas later on has a shot. It looks like that Mehmet's kind of got it saved, but it seems to take a massive deflection off Chris Hamilton and loop up and into the net. So there's a degree of fortune with them there. But I suppose that at the moment, like Queen's Park, we just simply will not care.
No, yeah, 3 points are 3 points. Who gives a shit? Rory Peyton, he was kind of what I came to speak about with Queen's Park, because for a really crap team to score, how many goals he got now? 15?
I think it's 15 in 26 appearances.
Yeah, slightly inflated by the 4 he scored against Elgin when Elgin were in an absolute state in the summer, and he scored against Ballatown as well. However,
all the goals against Ballatown not count all of a sudden.
Count less. But even to get 10 in the league for a team that's been that bereft for so much of it, it's just just really impressive.
Yeah, definitely deserves a lot. I think that I remember seeing Peyton when he was playing at Stranraer, so he'd have been, I think, late teens, early 20s at that point. And one of the things that I was really impressed about him is just he's very sure of himself and very confident. And what I mean by that is, like, you can see he's Queen's Park's like only striker. He's the only striker in the books at Queen's Park. The other player they had, Scott Williamson, is on loan at Cove Rangers at the moment. He needed a wee bit more development time before bringing him into the Championship. So Peyton effectively will play every single week, like, uncontested. And what I like about Peyton, what I mean by his confidence, is that all the chances that fall to him, like, strikers, if they miss a chance that can sometimes get to them, they can sometimes second guess themselves. He doesn't do that. He's very gallous, and he will want to keep on. He saw his post-match interview. He says it's a kick up the arse that they need, but he's very, very confident, and he'll keep on going. And if he misses a shot, it doesn't really faze him. He will keep on playing to the same standard. He's been a massive part of, say, the success they've had this season. But if it wasn't for him, I think they'd be in a far poorer position. Yeah,
it's crazy that it was like that at Queen's as well, where he misses. He's kind of like that whole Andy Cole thing, 4 chances to score 1 goal. But it's very impressive to do that in a team that doesn't, for this season, has really struggled to create a lot of chances. It's one of those forwards that just manages, and I used to say this about Adam Rooney quite a lot back in the day, that he just creates chances through being on the pitch, through his movement, through just knowing how to get into the right positions. Which is funny as well, because if Peyton knew how to read an offside line as well, then his movement would be even better.
It doesn't really help when the linesman's not keeping up a play with you. But I think that at Queen's, I think what I'm really interested to see is what happens over the January transfer window. Barry Hepburn's already left the club. I think we were all very excited to see him coming in on loan from Bayern Munich. Obviously, incredibly highly rated at his time at Celtic to get the move to Bavaria in the first place. But just like very good dribbler of the ball. But that's about it. I think I imagine he would be an amazing player at a side at the top of the table. See if he was like in Falkirk, playing for Falkirk, for instance. Yeah. I think he would get 9 out of 10
not in a
every
team
week.
That's toiling.
Not in a team that's toiling. Lightweight, didn't necessarily have the stomach for the fight, and I think that a lot of people will be really disappointed with him. I think the other player that's set to leave Queen's Park as well, it might be just street talking, but Callum McKenna, the goalkeeper, Manchester United are interested in signing him. And that goes back to the point about Queen's Park looking to be self-sustaining. If you can bring through these like uncut gems like Callum McKenna, give him a bit of game time, and we saw in his limited game time at particularly start of the season, 16 years old, this guy looks an absolute prospect. Manchester United sell him, you can sell him for, I don't know, sell him £1 million, but you get the add-ons and buy-ins in there. That's the sort of stuff that can keep the club going for a long time. There was talk, again, it's internet talk as well, of like your Ali Crawfords, your Cammy McPhersons of this world maybe coming in to supplement the middle of the park.
Of course, now that Davidson's in.
Because Davidson's in, this is an opportunity for St Johnson to perhaps get some of the duds off the wage bill.
Ali Crawford on another fan base.
Talk, again, I don't know if it's just street talk, but Stevie May perhaps coming in to supplement that forward line. I don't know, you'll know better than me if he's fallen out of favour.
He has a bit. He's not... He's still getting chances off the bench mainly, but Craig Levine's mostly preferred Jai Simi up front as the kind of the striker to just run and to occupy defenders, and that's Stevie May's job. And Jai Simi arrived as on loan winger from Charlton, so that kind of tells you a lot about where Stevie May's current stock is at McDermott Park.
I do think this is something that Queen's Park really need in January. It's experience they need, because I think that I'd actually listened back. I was listening to earlier in the week. I listened back to the big preview podcast that Shaughan and I recorded in the summer. The reason, because I thought it might be nice to go and do a bonus podcast.
You're really itching on some new content.
Oh God, I'm desperate for new content to go back and listen to that bit. But the reason I was doing it, because I thought it might be a nice idea to go back and listen to an old podcast that Shaughan and I did, to think, well, let's look at the predictions that we perhaps got right and the predictions we got wrong. And he very much said that Queen's Park would struggle this season because of the poor transfer business that they'd done, signing guys who had never played a very little senior football before. And I think that's reflected is that they're young guys, and that's fine, being young and making mistakes and learning the game. Not when 8 of the outfield players are all in the same boat. So they definitely need a bit of experience. And if that is your likes of a Cammy McPherson or an Ali Crawford, you're going to assume if they were encouraged to drop down a level, they could definitely bring something to Queen's Park that's missing.
Ali Crawford would have to play better than he did in his loan spell at Morton, was it? Where he was dreadful.
I didn't realise he was on loan at Morton. I take that back then. Maybe just don't sign.
I would have thought he'd still be able to do a job at the championship level, especially near the bottom of the table, but he'd have to play better than that.
But the big thing though, sorry, I know you're looking to move on.
Well, I was just going to ask you about Dunfermline, but yeah, keep going.
But the big thing I was going to say about Queen's Park is it goes back to that point you made about replacing Marion Bucher. Are we going to be a team that develops young players, that really goes out your way to develop young players? That's the whole ethos of the club, with the aim of selling them on. Or do you continue to do that, but certainly not to the same extent, and you become effectively like any other championship team? That's the big thing. And then on top of that as well, like there's Leanne Dempster has left the club. I'm going to gauge online sentiment and saying I don't think she'll be particularly missed at Queen's Park. And obviously she goes, I think there's talk that she's leaving because of health issues. Yeah. And I think you've got to clarify, obviously, wish her all very well. Our convalescence, and hope she's back to her best soon.
The Queen's Park fans weren't impressed with the job that she did while she was there.
No, I mean, I read the statement on the Queen's Park website, and I think they were talking about her achievements since she took charge, and I think she managed to transition from sort of amateur football into like a professional full-time club. She did great stuff with the academies. No mention in there about the stadium issue, and that's still a massive. Yeah. That's still a massive like grey area as to what's happening with Queen's Park. How long are you going to be playing in Hampden for? I mean, the fact that you spend 2 years playing at Firhill and at Oakville View, particularly the season they were at Oakville View, because that was an amazing time to build the fan base when they were like neck and neck with Dundee going for the championship. To move back to the City Stadium, as if we want to give it the sponsors title, to move back to Lesser at a ground that's got a capacity of about like 500, 600 people, but it's got an amazing royal box that's in the middle. That's a bit of a shambles, and you can completely understand why fans not happy with that, and not happy with the lack of communication at the club that came out.
The communication was always terrible.
Yeah, really bad. I mean, there was the joke about when Robin Velman left the club. That was like 2 sentences in the website, but they had hospitality, a steak pie hospitality. There's loads of loads of information about the hospitality.
And that was what was strange as well, because at Hibs she was always very communicative. Like, it was just weird to see her go to Queen's Park and kind of disappear.
Yeah, but then
from the kind of front line,
you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the thing about Willie Hawkey's intentions have never properly been explained. I don't think somebody might need to let me know, but I don't think he's actually given an interview and said, this is what I want to do with Queen's Park. This is where I see the club. This is where I want to take them. The only interview that went behind the scenes, I think it was the Eye paper, a bit of a puff piece about their academy and what they were looking to do, about the data, about Marion Bucher, you know, the one I was talking about?
Yeah, aye. Did they not use some daft like Cinderella or something like that?
Aye, it was when they were going for the championship. It must have been about like 6 or 7 months ago.
It's like one of those ones you see a team rising up to the lower leagues, you go, oh, that's a story.
Story, and
plucky underdogs.
Yeah, and then it takes the search for just going pie and Bovril and go like, Then you get an idea as to why Queen's Park are where they are.
Anything really to say about Dunfermline? Because we talked about earlier, like they're just missing so many players, and I did wonder, because we were like in the chat during the game, because I didn't see the game, but I saw the messages in the Terrace podcast WhatsApp chat, and there was kind of a bit of, it was joking, but people kind of saying like, is McPake a bit under pressure? Is he going to be at the door soon? But I couldn't really see any Dunfermline fans saying that. Everybody was just kind of philosophical about the fact that their team's in bits.
Did you watch his post-match interview?
No.
His post-match interview was really interesting. He said he didn't want to really focus on the injuries. He said basically Queen's Park wanted the game more. And he said that as soon as Aaron Comrie went off injured, that was about the 17th minute, certainly midway through the first half, he said as soon as he went off, there was a feeling from the players like, well, we're not going to win this tonight.
I don't know. That's always...
He said it's still 11 versus 11.
That's a wee bit more... That's a wee bit more troubling, actually, than just saying it's injuries, because injuries is actually a good and valid excuse. Whereas just saying that Queen's Park want it more, like, well, you're the manager. Why did the players not want it that much, especially when you're not on a good run of form yourselves, and you're thinking, while we're down at the bare bones, if we're actually going to get a victory, it's probably going to come at Queen's Park, who are terrible themselves.
But is it the sort of thing where if you're a player and you're a young player, because there's a lot of young guys, I'm sure there's, especially those boys coming off the bench, I'd never heard of.
But that's the thing as well, when you blame the players for not wanting more, I think it always, and I think, again, going back to something Shaughan said, we missed you, Shaughan. Have fun in Australia. That
seen his son.
Yes.
It's like Philomena, but it's Shaughan off to Australia.
Good film, that.
That was a good film, man.
I can't actually watch that on a flight to Australia.
No, because we did. Remember, we did a
yeah, I was on it though.
Oh, you're not on it.
You and two others.
No, I would never. I think it was you that picked the film. I would never have watched it. But nevertheless, anyway.
Yes,
Sorry,
Shaughan said previously when he was talking about managers who say like the opponent wanted it more, it's often like kind of a bit of a red flag. Like, well, you're just not taking any responsibility for your part in it. And yes, he's down to the bare bones. There's not much you could do, but I still looked at their team, a back three of Comrie, Hamilton, and Edwards with O'Halloran and Moffat as the wing backs. I was like, And then Comrie gets injured. He brings on Miller Fenton, who's a left back who's never started a game before. He puts him in the centre of the back three. It's like, you can at least try and move away from the back three. I know that maybe when you're struggling a little bit and you've got so many players out, that you maybe rely on the system more than you rely on individuals. And then it's maybe harder to change it about. But there gets to a line where you're just trying to fit in far too many square pegs into round holes here.
The way you might look at it as well is though that when he is coaching Dunfermline, they might only be coaching in one particular system. So why would you want to disrupt the system and then go for something that nobody's really familiar with?
You're already disrupted. But
it's like I heard someone say that it was when, and I'm going to have to bring up the English Premier League here. I think it was when Chelsea played Tottenham Hotspur, and when the Hotspurs got 2 players sent off,
yes,
and they were still, Ange Postecoglou was still insisting on playing that really big high line, and I think that there was arguments of why didn't
they're really lucky not to get for the game.
But it was like there was a question of why did they not change shape? Why did they not like drop deeper and absorb pressure? And I think it might be Michael Cox who said, well, they've been coached in this certain way. Surely it's best to just keep on doing what you're familiar with doing. That had up until that point certainly paid a lot of dividends.
It's the old kind of conundrum. Do you prepare a plan B?
I just make plan A better. Yeah, I mean, I do have sympathy with McPake because, as we mentioned there, that list of players that he's got missing, that is a pretty handy list. I mean, to go there, get like Reece Breen and Kyle Benedictus and players like that. I mean, there's like these guys would walk into most teams in that division, and having to play like Chris Hamilton at centre back. I think he's done it in the past, certainly not his position. And by moving him into the centre defence, you sort of also weaken the centre of the park as well by not having his legs in there. I did feel pretty sorry for Dunfermline, if I'm being honest.
They might need some bodies though, because Benedictus, he's gone for an R scan. He's only played twice in September. That kind of feels like he might not even play much at all this season if he's still struggling. And what is his bloody name? I've blanked on it. The double-barreled name.
Kane Richie Hostler.
Yes, he's another one that's gone for a scan as well, and he's had a lot of injury problems in his career. So those 2 players, they can't really bank on just coming back and making them better immediately.
It's a difficult thing because this is perhaps where McPake might be criticised for his squad building. But I mean, how many, unless you are like, for instance, like Celtic, how many players can have like 2 quality position players? How many teams can afford to have 2 top quality players for each position where you can switch one out for another one and there's no real drop off? Nobody. So Dunfermline will be like most teams where the manager's probably got about 12 or 13 outfield players that he's got cast iron trust in, and the rest is made up of youngsters. And unfortunately, the players that he's got that degree of trust in, just only a handful were available for that match. But yeah, disappointing result. The one thing I do want to say, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that's picked up on this, there was a period, I can't remember what half it was in, I think it might be in the second half, but any time the ball went into that half, there was like a chill box that was just off the pitch. It looked like a player receiving treatment. So any time the ball, and if you watch the match on BBC Scotland, you'll know what I'm talking about. Any time the ball went into that part of the pitch, it's like, who's off getting treated? It's a fucking box again.
It's like the wee laddie was playing with the ball at the side of the pitch at Stenny.
Yes, that's exactly what it was like. That is exactly what it was like.
Craig, you mentioned, we just talked about doing Plan A better. I saw a post on Pie and Bovril today written by yourself, which talked about Shaughan McGuigan getting Plan A better.
Yeah.
It certainly was very good on Tuesday night as they pumped Cove Rangers 4-0 and a drubbing that was going on double that.
Yeah, I think that the 4-0 scoreline is 100% reflective of the match itself. Falkirk were very good in the first half and they steamrolled like Cove Rangers in the second half. I bought a pay-per-view for this match. I thought it was... Because originally when we were picking the games we were going to talk about, we picked to do Falkirk Queen of the South. But then with Falkirk playing Cove on the Tuesday, I thought, well, there's no point in doing that. We'll just cover the game on the Tuesday instead because etc, etc. So I'm glad that I watched this. I've obviously keep an eye out for Falkirk. Like regardless of the situation, always want to see what Falkirk are up to.
What Hibs up to?
like Celtic and Rangers fans watching each other. I always keep an eye out on what Falkirk are doing, particularly this season because they are playing so well. So I watch all their match highlights. This is the first time I actually had the chance to sit down and watch Night Falkirk for 90 minutes. They were excellent here, really, really good. Got to say that Cove Rangers, in terms of an opponent, didn't really offer much at all.
Well, I could talk about that right now because that's something I wanted to bring up. Bloody hell, how negative was that team?
Fucking hell, man. It's all Cove basically set up in a 4-5-1 system where it was effectively...
Two of the centre midfielders are centre halves.
Yeah. I was trying to be a bit more positive than that. Effectively, it was a bank of 4 and a bank of 5 and get the ball up to... Try and soak up whatever Falkirk are going through you, and then get the ball up to Rarman Burrell, and then press up from there.
A man who famously in this division has been shown that it's very good, very, very good. One of the best players in the division, if not in the shout for the best player. When he's got a partner with him, when he's up front by himself, nowhere near as effective.
100%. I actually felt a bit sorry for him. I feel sorry for people all the time this evening, but I did because the ball would go up to him and he would do his best to try and hold up. He was being marked by. I thought Tom Lang was excellent. I thought Tom Lang was the best player in the park. Tom Lang did not give him a second speech. And I think at one point...
One of the signings of the summer in Scottish football.
Oh, Tom Lang's been excellent, and we'll come on and talk about him in greater detail just shortly. There was one point that Burrell actually kicked out at him. I think Lang had to go and get treatment, so you could tell there was a degree of frustration there. But all they tried to do was try and smother Falkirk. Then, when they won possession back, get up to Burrell, try and go and press up next to him, and it just didn't work because Falkirk are too good a team. I don't think there's proper credible opposition in that division. Falkirk are just better than everyone else. It's reflected in the league table. Yeah. Falkirk are better than everyone else. And when the feeling I got, if Falkirk score first, Cove aren't going to come back from this. Falkirk scored just before the interval. I think Cal Morrison scored a good goal in 41 minutes. And then, about 40 seconds after the restart, Nick Suman drops a corner. The entire Cove defence stop. Liam Henderson... He takes a touch. He's about 2 yards off the goal line. Takes a touch and blasts it home because the defender next to him stops what he's doing. And at that point, just it's 2-0. I mean, I'll be honest, my interest in the match kind of dipped after that point because you kind of knew it was one-way traffic. And the second half after that goal going in, Cove Rangers barely mustered anything whatsoever. And then Morrison got his second. Oliver scored one late on. But I very, very impressed from what I saw from this Falkirk team. And for Cove Rangers. We'll break the constituent parts down. For Cove Rangers, who had won, I know they're hit a wee bit of a sticky spell at the moment, but they'd won 7 games prior. I think their last 5 matches, they had looked as though they could maybe go and upset Falkirk and Hamilton at the top of the table. And that's not going to happen. They're in their own. They're doing what all Hearts fans want. They're in their own wee third place island. You'd love to be a Cove Rangers fan.
Please. Yeah, not really much more to say about Cove. They're missing a few players themselves. Falkirk, well, you mentioned there, troubling Falkirk and Hamilton at the top. Are Hamilton going to trouble Falkirk at the top?
What's the gap? I don't have an internet signal at the moment. I think that are Hamilton going to take them? No, because what needs to happen is, like Hamilton, I've got a game in hand against Stirling Albion.
Yeah, but they're 11 behind.
They're 11 behind. So what needs to happen is Hamilton need to win their game in hand.
Probably win at the Falkirk Stadium.
Yeah, hope Falkirk drop points somewhere, probably to Montrose or someone like that. Falkirk drop points somewhere, and then win the next 2 games against Falkirk. I can't see that happening.
Against a team that are 25 games undefeated.
Yeah, there's the other thing to say. And on top of that as well, like Falkirk's recent run, Like, they've won their last 7 matches. They've conceded like just 2 goals in the process, and they're smashing teams up. Like
yeah, Aidan Nesbitt's in great form recently. Callum Morrison, like we all know about his ability at that level. He just abused Jacob Jones in that game. Maybe one thing to be a bit concerned about is Ross McKeever going off.
I've got to say though, yeah, but Ryan Shanley came on and did well.
I was just saying, they've signed Ryan Shanley and he looked quite handy. You know, he's a decent player.
You know, so as well, when you look at the Falkirk bench last night, the guys that were like Stephen McGinn hasn't played much football this season. I think very much the 2, and John McGlynn's 4-2-3-1. The 2 it's Brad Spencer and Liam Henderson that are I know they're going to be here too. But you've got on the bench, you've got Ryan Shanley, Jordan Allen, like Stephen McGinn, Shaughan Mackey, like all guys that are very, very decent for that level. All guys that can, Alfie Agaman, you know, all guys that can come on and make a positive difference to the team. I don't think there's any other side in the division that has that depth of quality there in the team.
Shall we just move on?
Well, I suppose you were going
to talk about Tom Lang. I think one thing to say is that McGlynn, I mean, last season really kind of petered out. And they were really disappointing. And then there was the disaster, an absolute capitulation against Airdrieonians. Don't think, I didn't have a look myself, but I'm going to assume that there was Falkirk fans pissed off enough to call for his head there. Yeah. And there would have been other clubs. There would have been a lot of clubs. There would have been reactionary enough to say, right, okay, this has not worked out. Thanks for your efforts. We're going to try somebody else now. Let's go again. They decided to wind it back, and McGlynn very astutely saw the areas in the team that he needed to fix. They needed to be better, and they'd be much better in defence. Mm-hmm. They needed a bit more fight and a bit to be able to dominate the midfield is a lot better than they were last year, and that's where Henderson and Spencer came in. Yeah. And Lang obviously has just been. Lang is not only transformed the defence because Lang's not only played brilliantly, but he's also transformed the defence because he's brought out the best in Cole Donaldson.
It's interesting. It's like that post in Pine Bovey you're talking about. There are a lot of parallels between themselves and Stennismuir, and obviously we're going to be recording a bonus podcast about Stenny, but effectively Falkirk and Stenny both use the same formation, a 4-2-3-1 formation. Last season, with Gary Naismith coming into the team, he very quickly identified the areas that Stennismuir were lacking in, and very similar, he has upgraded the same positions that John McGlynn's upgraded in. So we'll just be not interested in Stennismuir. We'll talk about Falkirk. Like so you bring in Tom Lang, who is like really aggressive, a winner. You could see that, like even at 4-0, he's still hammering into people and winning the ball and just setting the standards for the rest of the team. Donaldson, I don't think Donaldson's ever quite fulfilled his potential. Remember when he went from Livingston down to Queen's Park Rangers, and you think this guy's actually got a chance because he certainly looks the part, you know, ball playing, sort of rangy,
and he's funny because centre back. Ever since then, so he came back, he was at Dundee United, which was an absolute disaster of a spell. Even when they got relegated and they were in the Championship, he was still hopeless. But then, try to just have a look at him, because when did he move to next? Yeah, he went. Then he went to Cali, and he was decent in Cali. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, he's turned it around. And then he went to County. I can't remember at County. I don't think he played well at County. And then he was at Dunfermline, where I think he was again a bit kind of so.
Yeah, I think he was at the relegation that year.
That was the relegation. So he wasn't playing well there either.
Obviously, you're dropping down to a level. I mean, it's all about. I mean, when players drop down a level, it's all about up here, isn't it? Because obviously, you've shown you've got the quality to have played at a good level before, but it's up here. You can just be, I'm too good for this, and you don't try as hard.
Terrible last season because he was alongside Brad Mackay. A very just kind of similar player to Cole Donaldson. A kind of guy who's got
6 months left in his contract as well, Brad Mackay. Just never forget it.
Got all the physical tools to be a very good centre-half, but lacks the concentration.
Yeah.
Lacks the kind of awareness. But if you put him beside somebody like Lang, who has that, then somebody who's able to just kind of guide them through a game, then he's very good.
Totally. Sean's talked about Tom Lang in the past and said that he's a very good sort of like a upper League One bottom end championship defender. And I mean, if Falkirk do get promoted, that's perhaps something they need to address. But for the moment, he has been a transformational signing. Middle of the park, Brad Spencer, he was excellent last night. And then you go Ross McKeever as a forward who can knit everything together. Because I think previously having guys like Gary Oliver, for instance, or Jordan Allen, guys that have got their uses, but they don't have that like real wrecking ball presence that Allen had, that McKeever has. I'm sure when he was signed from Mallow Athletic, like his statistics, if you just look at his raw numbers, his goals, I think he had like 5 goals last season at the Rex. Not great. And if you were a Falkirk fan, you're already down in the dumps about having been in the division, this year, entering your 5th year in that division, and you're going into it with a guy that couldn't hit double figures for Alloa Athletic. You'd be like, what on earth are we doing? But he's been class, and very similar. Like, by just being up there and winning those balls, you've got 3 very talented players that play off you: Calvin Miller, Aidan Nisbet, Callum Morrison.
Calvin Miller's been been excellent.
He's been excellent. Alfredo Aguiman. You've got these options that can play in that hole there. And by having McKeever up there, it really knits it together. I don't know what the prognosis is for us, if it's a long-term injury, if it was just a knock. It'll be interesting to see how they can function with, if it is Ryan Shanley there. Because they've been quite lucky in that regard, Falkirk. None of the key players have been injured for any long periods of time, as they've been able to largely pick. They've about the same. McGlynn has largely gone for the same, like 12 or 13, 14 players every week. Wee bit of rotation in that front 3, but it's largely the same group of players.
How did he go off? Was he stretchered or anything, or did he just?
Nah, just went off. He took a wee bit of a bang.
Because I saw somebody say like went down with nobody around him, but I was like, is that a case of going down with nobody around him because he's put his foot in the wrong thing and it's possibly a knee injury, or is it just a case that he sat down and going, I'm injured, stop the game?
But he was good. But I mean, for as good as Falkirk were, and you really, this is quite a funny game to talk about, because as good as Falkirk were, Cove didn't offer much at all. I mean, like they
came to just play counter attack, and that was it. And even then, like they're playing like Blair Euro and Connor Scully on the wings.
It's a waste of Connor Scully.
Support to the Borough at all in this game.
A total waste of Connor Scully. Total waste of Blair Ewell. They're really good players, and I mean, Ewell can play wide, but Connor Scully's a central midfielder. He's a really neat and tidy, someone that can keep the ball ticking over, quite combative, and you're wasting him by playing him out there. Probably the high point, or certainly the funniest thing, was any time that Paul Hartley stepped out in his technical area. You go, Paul Hartley, you're a wanker, and that was very, very clearly picked up on the cameras that were there. But just on the how negative that Cove Rangers were, I read the statistics for the game at the weekend. Falkirk won, Queen of the South 0. Queen of the South had 1 shot in that match.
No, they had 56% possession and had 1 shot.
So I think that I don't know if now teams like, I mean, there's 2 full-time teams in the division. Two teams who you would expect on paper to rival Falkirk. Not as good as Falkirk, but to at least go there and give it a go. And to go there and play so negatively, it's you're almost letting Falkirk win the title. Give it a go. Just go out there and then give it a go. Because I mean, they can be got at. Like, I don't think their fullbacks are particularly strong. Like Finn Yates is decent, but he's effectively a central midfielder that's playing at right back. Leon McCann had a good game last night. These guys can be got at. It's easy to try and get them pinned back and get overlaps and so on and try and exploit them. Give it a go. If you go there and just sit in and just try not to get beat,
or just give your all-star centre forward a partner.
It's like, I mean,
like even if you want to just play with 2 banks of 4 and just knock it long and just like put in the area him, give him somebody to help occupy defenders, and he might do something. If you just stick him up front by his own, you just ask him, right, we're going to try keep a clean sheet. Can you just try win the game by yourself?
And then if you look at Falkirk, you've got like McKeever up front who can hold the ball and pop it off. If Falkirk need to go direct, they can. They need to go short, that they can. And it's the three in behind that'll do most of the damage.
Right, well, we kicked off the podcast with a team that won its first game in months. How about another one?
Yes.
Clyde 3, Bonnyrigg Rose 2.
Sorry, man. Sorry. I don't mean to steal your thunder there, right? But I'd actually, because I'd this written down, right? It's this completely, none of the games we're going to be talking about here. This was a bonus thing that I observed. I watched the interview on Edinburgh City's TV channel from Michael McIndoe. They were interviewed after the side lost 3-1 to Alloa Athletic, right? The interview was 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
Okay.
Right? How many times during that interview did Michael McIndoe say Dave?
Right, okay. So the last, I can't remember. I think the last time he asked Shaughan.
24 and 6.
24 and...
Aye. How many times he says 4 minutes, 2 seconds? How many Daves did we get?
2 seconds. 17 times.
Yes! Yes! Michael McIndoe said Dave 17 times in that 4 minute 2 second interview. Now, it might have been 18 times. I think he said mate instead of Dave. So it might have been 18, but I've gone for 17.
I counted that up on the first one he done, which again wasn't that long. It was only about 3 minutes or so. The one that we kind of put the video up about, and we've talked about it at length. It started this trend, and I counted it in that one, and I think that was only like 12, but again it was like 3 minutes. But again, one of them though, it was kind of like, it was hard to tell. He said a word. He said a short word after the end of his sentence, but I couldn't tell if it was Dave.
I think I'm just like, if in doubt, just assume it's Dave. I think that's the easiest way to go with Michael McIndoe. Sorry, I completely cut you off on your introduction in that match.
Don't they call Dave? I don't think in either of these teams.
I should have saved that. I should have saved that one for the very end. But just so when we're talking about,
I'm happy. I got it bang on. So that's
fine. I think they're playing Falkirk this weekend as well.
Yes, they are.
Right.
Yeah. I was actually talking about this to you and Taylor on a Patreon that we did that was released yesterday. That I completely lost my train of thought there. What the hell was I talking about?
You're talking about you and Taylor. You're talking about Edinburgh City.
Oh, yeah, Edinburgh City. Sorry. Yeah. That when they played, was it Aki's recently? And they were at home? They were 33-1.
Yeah, aye. That's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. They'll mean McIndoe, he's bullish. I mean, he's obviously a fairly bullish guy if you kind of look at what the company that he keeps and what he does with himself. He's quite bullish, though, that they'll begin to start picking up points. And I think they're quite fortunate that Annan have been pretty rich. I mean, a good point against Montrose there.
Edinburgh did play quite well against...
See, a good point against Montrose. No, they chucked it away. They were 2 up against Montrose, and Montrose drew 2 each with them.
Yes.
But they did. But there you go. There's the thing against Alloa. You were there's a 1-1 up until the
89th minute.
89th minute, and then you kind of capitulated a bit. Then getting OZC back as well. I thought he'd never kick a ball again. 3 goals in 3.
The Love Island residues as you get kind of a wee bit of increased intention as a model. So he would have got offered a couple of jobs, and then he also would have definitely would have been doing this. He would have been doing the nightclub circuit,
of course.
Where doing the kind of come meet this guy for Love Island. And that's dried up now, so he's like, I'll go back to Edinburgh and play football again.
I said that to Shaughan. Just God, Sean's great, isn't he? But I said that to Shaughan. It's like just you milk this for all it's worth, because it'll be the attention for this sort of thing's fleeting. Go out there, make a bit of money from it, and then when nobody cares anymore, just go back to Edinburgh and go and start playing football again. And I've never particularly rated him. I always think his good games come around like 1 every 7 or 8. But I mean, seems to be having a great job at Edinburgh, scoring goals for them. But I do think they're going to struggle against Falkirk. I do think they're going to struggle.
Right, speaking of a team that was struggling.
Yes, finally.
So
Clyde, can we finally talk about Clyde? Is that okay?
So they're still bottom of the table. They're in 10th place. There's a 5-point gap between them and Forfar. But this is already, you're seeing evidence of exactly what Clyde fans were hoping for. Ian McCall, great manager to get for that level, undoubtedly. They knew there was money coming in January to spend. Ian McCall's already started spending it, and already it's making a difference.
Yeah, 3-2 win over Bonnyrigg Rose. First half performance might have been Clyde's best, maybe the best half of football that we've seen. Maybe since the Danny Lennon team that won promotion from League Two. So you're going back a wee while.
Certainly not a lot to rival it in the time between.
No, 3 expertly taken goals. Yes, Bonnyrigg's defending was absolutely
incredible.
Bonnyrigg's defending is absolutely shit for 2 of them, but nevertheless, been very, very impressive, very, very impressive stuff from them. But then, as good as they were in that first half, they almost chucked it away at the end there with being some really bad play.
I was going to say 2 big factors in this. One, you talked about how well they played. I think there was new signings that were made. They signed 2 centre halves right away to improve the defence. Lee Hamilton and Craig Howie.
Yeah.
Both of them played well. Hamilton in particular, I think fans were impressed with his kind of calmness on the ball. That also meant that shifted Logan Dunnicky to right back, who has been one of Clyde's very few bright spots this year at centre half. However, he played very well. He scored one and set up another.
Yeah, I think that I was looking at, we want to talk about the players that Clyde have got. So, remember, Jim Duffy was the director of football, and the fact that 7 of the players, 9 if you want to include the loan sign, the fact that 7 players are already away. So guys like Dylan Duncan, Fraser Malcolm, Ross Forbes, who most people have heard of, but Ross Forbes, John Craig, Kyle Gunn, Cameron Mulvaney, Josh McCulloch, he's joined civil service and loan. In fact, the 7 of these guys have signed. I think the only reason McCulloch would have probably been, but he's got a 2-year contract. Dunnicky is like the unalloyed success. Dunnicky looks like Dunnicky is a big laddie, and if he can got the physical tools to make it in the game, but if he can play alongside experienced players that can talk him through the position. And if he can play it right for wing back, or he can play it full back, he can play it centre back, I think he's a guy that can do something positive for Clyde. Yeah,
those new two signings at centre half. You also had Robbie Leach further forward.
He looked good.
He played a good part in the first goal. Him and basically King made that by opening up the space in the centre of the area. But a key factor in this was Ray Grant returning to the starting lineup for the first time in months. And he was only able to play 60 minutes. And they had complete control of the game for 60 minutes. Lost that control a little bit after that. However, I still think they would have been heading for a comfortable 3-0 victory, maybe conceding a late one. But was it for... I love this goal. I absolutely love this. Ross Lyon, what the fuck are you doing?
Fucking hell, man. So, like, to watch, so obviously...
There's two brilliant goals in this game, both for very different reasons. King's goal is a work of genius, and this is just... It's like from a Danny Baker video. It's superb.
Like, he picks up possession, Ross Lyon. I think he was playing left wing back in this game.
Aye, or left back.
Left back, aye. They're playing a flat back four. That's right. Peter Grant wasn't playing, so it was a flat back four. Hamilton and Howie, and the new centre backs in the middle. Dunnicky one side and Ross Lyon. Now Ross Lyon by trade is a right full back. I've seen him play at left back. So he was a Stennismuir player, so he's one of the BSC 6. Honestly, man. You know, like the injustice for like the Guildford 6 or however.
I just thought of the Newcastle 5.
Aye, that's the Newcastle 5. You know, there was a miscarriage of justice. No, the big miscarriage of justice was Stennismuir signing so many dumplings for the same football team. Anyway, so Ross Lyon's like not the worst player in the world, but I think at Clyde he's been badly shown up, and you read the comments in Pine Bovril, and you see him. I saw him like last week when Stennismuir beat him 2-1. I wasn't particularly impressed by him. He's quite fast, right? He can be quite fast off the mark, and that can cover a multitude of sins. I don't think he's a particularly good player. But there's between me not thinking someone's a good player and someone making such egregious a mistake that you're actually like, what on earth are you doing? Picks up the ball about 30 yards from his own goal under no pressure, and he's got numerous. And then Robbie McGill basically sort of like, it's like hearing a noise. Like, you know, Robbie McGill's like somebody who hears a noise downstairs, so he basically pops his head around, you know, to see what's that, and he sees Ross Lyon dribbling as fast as little legs can carry him. He sticks out a toe to take it away from him, and then all of a sudden, because I mean, you see Lee Hamilton, like, you know, he moves, like, so there's a Sadler is lurking inside the penalty box. Hamilton moves away from him to give Lyon the option of a pass, because if he knocks it back to him, Hamilton will just stick it. Hamilton will just launch it and just reorganise. He doesn't do that. McGill pokes it to Sadler, and it's an easy finish. And Lyon, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? The second goal, I've got a wee bit of sympathy for him, because it's I think it's Connor Doan tries to play the ball into the box. It takes a deflection, and I think Sadler gets the run on Lyon to finish. But they're both Lyon's fault with that first one, especially. That's a bad mistake. And Clyde, that's something Clyde, and Ian McCall probably already has. He's probably got a left back signed up, because Lyon's just not cutting it, not good enough.
I'll actually see if I can stick in the two goals that we're talking about. The Alex King goal is, like I said,
it's brilliant goal.
And yeah, the first Bonnyrigg goal needs to be seen to be what this. That was pissing.
But the goals in that game, like Clyde's goals, I think Ian McCall said it in his post-match interview, like the goals, there was something to like about all the goals. I mean, that first goal, it's really well worked from Clyde's perspective. The fact that you've got great interplay between Leach and King in the middle of the park. And Leach, I think that, you know, only going by the highlights, but everything good that Clyde did came from having Leach in there. I think he's a really good sign. All the players that Clyde have brought in actually are all really good signings on paper, certainly. The ball played out to Dunnicky, and it's a good ball in, but you really have to question. I was looking at, I think it's like Kerr Young just seems to he almost seems to like wave like Connor Young on, almost like somebody who's standing at the top of a water park, you know, when it's somebody's turn to go down the slide. Like, right, that's you. Watch it back, and you almost see like he puts a hand in his back. I'm not sure if he's passing him on to Neil Martiniuk, who's playing on side, but both of them, like Martiniuk's not a clue what's going behind him. Kerr Young just is like, right, on to you, and he finishes. Terrible goal from Bonnyrigg's perspective. The other one, like Dunnicky's goal, the one from the header, you kind of see him given, but I think that it's like Martiniuk and Callum Connolly kind of both lose sight of him, and he doesn't really need to jump far to get it. The third goal, however, goal of season contender, like that from Alex King. If that's might not be his final game, like he's gone back to Morton, but McCall intimated that he
trying
might
to
come
get
back,
him back.
that he's trying to get him back. But fucking hell, man, what a finish! That's one of the goals of the season. I mean, to hit that with your left foot first time. McCall said that he played him out on the right because he wants him to come like an inverted winger almost to come inside and finish. But that wee give and go with Leach, finish it like that, man, just beautiful goal. And he hits it. Paddy Martin's got no chance because that ball is hit very high and it just dips like underneath the crossbar.
Quick little celebration after it as well, where he's just like just the stand and he's just like, yeah, I'll do this all the time.
Oh, but the best bit was see Robbie Leach puts his hands in the back of his head, like what the fuck was that? It was good. But that's the thing is that was a really, really important win for Clyde, because with Elgin City winning at the weekend, you know, it's kind of they've got to effectively keep pace with them. I think Clyde, I get the feeling Clyde will be all right. I think obviously the 5-point gap at this stage is still quite a lot to try and make up, yes. But I do think they'll be able to do it. Forfar Athletic are the team that I suspect will be in a bit of trouble, which I never in a million years would have thought we would say at the beginning of the season. But just what McCall's doing is like that team that was signed at the beginning of the season is no fit for purpose. I mean, like the guys that are there who are good enough, Ross Forbes isn't fit enough, and the guys that are fit enough aren't good enough. So he's done well to basically just tear up these contracts and be able to get it. And if he's got, like McCall said, he's got another good few players. You've got Ray Grant coming back, effectively a new player given how long out he's been. You'd have to fancy Clyde's chances. I mean, if not this season, then you'd imagine next season, if the money's still there, they will be able to kick on and challenge for the top four. Still big question marks about why they're going to be playing and all that sort of stuff, but on the pitch, certainly.
Because the whole Crown Point thing fell through.
Yeah, it did. That's gone to the Finnart Football Academy, so I don't know what Clyde are going to do next.
So we're talking about the bottom of the table. It feels a little bit reactionary to talk about Bonnyrigg in those terms. They are still 10 points ahead, but if Clyde do manage to recover, Bonnyrigg are only 5 points ahead of 9th now, and they're in really bad form. They've played, so that was their 9th game since they last played Clyde, which they won 3-2. Since then, they've won twice and lost 6, both victories against East Fife, weirdly enough.
They've beaten 3-0 the previous week.
Yeah, aye. I beat them 3-0 and they also won. Did not win 4-1 as well?
Yeah, they pumped them both games. Weird.
It's really weird.
I was actually taking a look at Bonnyrigg because I can understand supporters' frustrations with how things are at the moment, because what Spartans are doing is exacerbating that.
Yes.
Because you've got a team who geographically similar-ish. Obviously, Spartans are from Edinburgh, Bonnyrigg not a million miles down the road in Midlothian. Both Lowland League champions, both have come into the division within 12 months of each other. And you've got Bonnyrigg who, like, other than the start they made to their maiden season, they haven't really done much. Like, I think
Bonnyrigg have a bigger core fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, because I've spoken loads of times about how much I rate Bonnyrigg and all that. Everyone knows who listens to this how much I rate Bonnyrigg as a football club. But you look at Spartans who have come into it and who are at the moment could be the main contenders for Stennismuir. Still a big points difference, but the way they've won their last 4 matches, they've progressed in the Scottish Cup. They've got a big game against Hearts to look forward to.
Which I'm not actually going to.
Which you're going to be able to go to.
I never had any interest in going to it at all, because I knew it would be a nightmare to try and get a ticket. Ainsley Park's not a great place to watch football. It's not a great place to get to. We've said that many times. However, I was offered a free ticket by my best pal, because he's like, I've got 2, and the guy who got me them can't go now, so do you want to go? I was like, well, right. I'll just hang out with you for a few hours.
That sounds alright. That's a worth the way to spend the day. But when you see what Spartans are doing, then you'd be like fuck them, what's going on here? What I did, right, I actually had a direct comparison between the Bonnyrigg this season compared to Bonnyrigg last season. Bonnyrigg are actually better now than they were last season. I actually didn't think that was the case. I thought Bonnyrigg had regressed. That's not the case at all. Bonnyrigg last season, after 18 games, they had 20 points and they were in 8th place. This time around, they've got 22 points after 18 games and they're in 5th. So they are in
huge strides.
They are in a better position. I just wonder, like, I thought that last season that having given contracts to everyone who won the Lowland League, I think there was only 5 players that departed, having given contracts to the team that won the Lowland League, take a season to acclimatise. survive, stay in the division. They did that, and then you might see some degree of evolution. There really hasn't been any degree of evolution, though. I mean, Bonnyrigg aren't the worst team I've seen play this season, but they're perhaps the most like eye-bleeding side to watch, because it's like balls are just like thumped. They're like, it's like very much. I know they've come from junior football, but I think that the football on the pitch is still of a junior standard, where it's get the ball up to the big guy, let's rush it as quickly as forward. I mean, the bulk of the team are all about 6'3" as well. Not a lot of football in there. I mean, they work hard, they're really enthusiastic, and they give you a hard game. I've said that all the time. Like my own team, Stennismuir, anytime. I actually went to, the last time I was at New Dundas Park, beat them 1-0. After about 10 minutes, I wanted to go and sit in the car and just watch the game, the scores come through in football, because I get so anxious watching football there, because they make it so difficult and so claustrophobic for you. But it's just, I can understand why people are just getting a wee bit fed up of what Robbie Horn is offering up at the moment.
Yes, and the form as well. It's a fan base because they do have the big fan base that we've talked about before, but it is something that's still relatively a new thing. Like before, they had decent crowds for like junior football and stuff, but it was only really the last couple of years kind of fans getting caught up with a dream. Let's try to reach the
You're winning, because you're winning most weeks.
And they're winning every week, so that's why they're getting like 800 people turning up to the ground. These fans are now a bit kind of like, this isn't fun to watch at all, because not only are they not winning, they're not playing good football. And you talk about that, the need to I think at this point kind of revolutionise the teams. They've tried to evolve it slowly. Problem is, look at their recruitment since they've come in to the SPFL. Like if you look at last season, they're still really dependent on a lot of players who got them up, and they're still dependent on those guys as well. Like I think this campaign they signed Gus Mailer at right back, who's been good. Other than that, there's not really been a whole lot that's properly added it. It's the
big thing. Like he is terrible at signing strikers.
Oh God,
he's really bad at signing strikers. I mean, Asadolor got 2 goals there, and weirdly, Asadolor, when they last played this, of course, because we're going round into the third round of fixtures here. When they last played at New Douglas Park, Shaughan and I did a podcast and very complimentary about him. However, like he only seems to really play well against Clyde. There are times they've let go of already this season. Ali Ufai has been mutually consented. He's terrible. Xander Murray left the club.
Yep.
He wasn't good enough for the SPFL. They've got Liam Buchanan in the books. Great player in his day, but he's 37 now. You can't really rely on him. And a Sadler who's similar to us, he sees good games come around every 5 or 6, 7 or 8 games. So they need another striker, and I do think they perhaps need to get someone who with a bit of pace that can play out wide, because they're pretty predictable to play against.
I think they actually need a few. I think not just a striker they need. The defence is looking it was the bedrock of the team, and also other than Magaki's kind of late season flourish, the main reason they stayed up last year is that they didn't concede a lot of goals.
They did sign. I mean, one of the things that they did do was get Paddy Martin on loan from Falkirk.
Yes.
He's been an excellent signing for them. I think since they've come into the SPFL, I think he's definitely the best sign, one of the best goalkeepers in the division.
But other than him and Mailer, there's not really been a whole lot that's been added that's been real kind of quality in the midfield, which was such an important part of their team when they came up, and was what kind of made them, despite the fact that they are a direct team, what made them good to watch was these guys in midfield. But Lee Curry getting on, Johnny Stewart getting on. Guys they've signed haven't been good enough to make sure that they don't play. So it's just, Robbie Horn is certainly under pressure, but it is January. If he can manage, finally, to sign well consistently, like I can imagine they'll be looking to bring in about 3 players this month. You reckon 3, 4? If the books will allow it. I think he has to, for him to. Well, I was actually thinking, as long as, I still think they will. I started off this section by saying they need to watch, because if Clyde do recover, then Bonnyrigg can be in trouble. But I still think they will just churn out enough results that they'll be fine. That they'll finish about 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever. I can see, unless things improve though, I can see them, if things turn drastically bad, then yeah, they probably will say to Robbie Horn, thanks very much for all your work, but we need to go in a different direction to save ourselves. But if things just kind of stay the same as they are, I can kind of see them getting to the end of the season and then them going, thanks for all your hard work. didn't kind of dismiss you mid-season. This is a good time to part ways.
It's difficult to call Fowler at that division because the top four looks sewn up. I think the top four have been sewn up for a couple of weeks now, and you can talk about where the various teams are going to finish. But I think the top four is going to be Stennismuir, Spartans, Dumbarton and Peterhead. Beneath that, though, is very, very interesting, very difficult to pick because you've got two sides who I thought would have good seasons, Forfar and East Fife, massively underwhelming. Then you've got like Clyde, who have got the capacity to improve. Clyde are improving. We've seen that there with that result. That first half performance was excellent. Elgin have put together two really good results, and their game in hand is against Clyde Elgin, so that could be a real 6-pointer at that. Stranraer, don't think Stranraer are a particularly good side. Again, I've seen them twice this season. Stennismuir have beaten them 8-0. 5-0 at Oakville was the best performance Stenny have turned in years. And then you've got Bonnyrigg, who we've discussed. So it really feels like a much of a muchness there. And I think that Clyde, certainly perhaps most on the other side, have got the capacity to improve. And it's for the ones to watch out for. For the ones, because all the guys they're signing, the first it was a boy, that was Daniel Lobban, I think a young boy they signed for Dundee United, and they're carrying so many like these waif-like boys for Tayside and Angus. You know, you need like experienced players. Comes at a premium, however. And I just not sure if the funds are there at Station Park. But nevertheless, to go back to the original point, good first half of football by Clyde, two terrible mistakes by Ross Lyon, the first one especially.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to insert it into the YouTube video of this because that was very funny. Right, I think that'll do us.
That's a nice tight hour and 5 minutes. That is good. Well done. Remember the podcast we used to do when it was in Euro Flat in Edinburgh, where it was me, you, and Shaughan. Those were the days. Those were the days. They were a lot of fun.
You should just take them off and just like sit back and just let you talking and just come in with a half-witty remark every now and again.
Well, the half-witty's a wee bit. You're being a wee bit too kind to yourself there. But it was the idea. You had the element of control there. You had that element of control because you kept things in order. Shaughan and I just completely lose run of ourselves.
Well, I'll tell you, especially since I'll be getting filmed next year. We will do next year's this year's, in fact, next season's Lower League preview. I think I'll be hosting that just to move things along.
Okay, well, listen, it's your...
Either that or you record it the week before, so you give me like an entire week run-up to edit it.
Or we'll just do what we normally do, and you can just edit it.
I don't even know if that would fit on YouTube. I don't get fit on my computer.
No. I watched a really good video. I don't know if any of the listeners have listened to it. It's called Plagiarism in YouTube by H. Bomber Guy. Have you seen that?
No.
Very, very good. It's about 4 hours long, so not quite as long as the Lower League podcast. But he talks about how various YouTubers are like stealing like academic texts and articles and so on, and he eviscerates this guy called James Somerton. It's very satisfying. But very sad, actually, quite poignant at the same time, because James Somerton was a queer creator and he was basically stealing all the work of other queer creators and passing off as his own. So, great video. Watch it. Honestly, I'd highly recommend it. 4 hours sounds like it's quite intimidating. Guy's a great presenter. It's a really good video.
Content theft online. Well, I never.
He says the man's going to steal Clyde's videos and stick them up online. Aye. You're just as bad as James Somerton. There you go.
I admit to stealing though.
But the thing was, actually, this is actually quite similar to yourself. He had a Patreon where he's making tens of thousands of dollars off the back of other people's work. Christ, you are James Somerton.
Dollars.
Oh my God. Canadian dollars even at that. Whoa.
All right. Toronto. No, this isn't quite right.
Oh, gee. It was really funny. You ever seen Fargo before?
Yes.
Now, I know that Fargo is set in the United States, but
close.
I see the bit that looks like the worst sex of all time. Yeah. See the bit where Steve Buscemi is shagging that prostitute and she's like, oh yeah, that's it, real good, oh yeah. And then Shep Proudfoot comes in and beats him with a belt. Sorry, that's just like Canadian. I know it's not Canadian, but oh yeah, that's it. Yep. Real good, nearly there, yep.
Right, that will do us. Thank you very much for listening. We are, as we mentioned earlier, going to record a Patreon podcast where I am going to ask Craig Telfer all about Stennismuir's 10-match winning run. 10. Ten.
It's going to be good, man. It's going to be good. So make sure you get over to Patreon to listen to that.
Yes.
Oi, Telfer, that's just like every other podcast you do. There's all the mention about Stenny. Yeah, but this is going to be about 45 minutes talking just about the Wawas.
So that is patreon.com/test podcast, and that will be on the £2 a month tier. Right. Craig, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
goodbye. And for the weekend, I hope you enjoy your football. But
oh, please do so respectfully. So no flares, no pyro, and no drums. God forbid.
Goodbye.